When we approach things for the first time, it's usually filled with a mixture of trepidation and excitement, plus sometimes a little bit of fear. Think back to your first driving lesson, your first job interview, your first date, all filled with a good healthy mixture of excitement and nerves. And that's exactly how I and my team feel about today, as this is the first Enterprising Women's Summit in the east of England.
So I'd like to start with another quote, and that quote says, "When you don't like how the table is set, turn the table." About 47 years ago, the government has passed an Equal Pay Act that makes it mandatory for businesses to pay people equally for the same job. 47 years later, we have a gender pay gap in the UK of about 18% that's been stagnating for the past several years. And some of it is still due to equal pay issues. So if we don't like how the table is set, and it seems like we've been sitting at this table that is not in our favor for 47 years now, perhaps it's time to turn it. So what we want to do is we want to turn the table and close the gender pay gap not in 217 years, but in 17 years.
Some interesting statistics. 76% regarded business as a force for social good. 86% believe the success of a business should be measured in terms of more than just its financial performance. And it's interesting, the millennials increasingly asking about diversity, gender pay gap at interviews. They're also increasingly asking about how does the business deliver its results? How does it contribute to the sustainability agenda? What else does it do other than just drive for that bottom line profit?
So I've done some research looking at work-life balance and health behaviours in professional women. So I interviewed around 13 women in different sectors, different job roles, so anything from working in banks to social workers. And we're just asking them questions around how do you manage that? When you have to go from work to home, the stresses that you get in both domains, how do you manage that in a way that you can find an appropriate balance, but also make sure you're looking after yourself?
What I would say at the beginning here is I am not standing here telling you how you should do it. What I am trying to share with you is some of the things I've learnt on my very bendy journey to today with regards to not the traits that you need to have to be an epic leader, but some of the things that have helped me as I have learnt and sort of moved through organisations to maximise success and increase my potential. The epic leadership model, it's all in the letters. E is for exposure, P is performance, I is impact, and C is being conscious. My experience, and certainly for the early part of my career, is that a lot of people, but particularly women, we put an awful lot of focus on the P for performance. We work hard and we hope that that's going to be enough to enable us to get where we want to be. And it does work for a while, but once you hit middle management levels, my experience is that unless you really put strategic focus on all of the areas, it can end up in frustration and it can stop you from actually moving as quickly as you could, either up the chain or to different roles. Because not everybody wants to progress upwards, and that isn't the only path, but it can stop us from even just moving sideways or moving to do the things that we want to do.
I am surrounded by so many truly impressive achievers here today that the romantic in me would actually quite like to portray my career as a story of naked ambition, grit and determination. But in reality, it's been a case of keeping my eye on the opportunities, learning to value and capitalise on the skills of people around me, and continuously widening my own skill set. And if you'd have suggested back then that one day I would be MD, I probably would have laughed out loud or actually just gone and hidden under my duvet. I simply wanted progression. I wanted to take on a bit more responsibility, just see how far I could go. And I didn't want to stand still and do the same job year in, year out. But I wasn't afraid to turn to colleagues or directors for help and advice. And I very much felt part of a team, even though I was actually managing on a day-to-day basis. And I think continuing to be a team player is what's paid dividends for me as a leader now. I think it was Carolyn Everson from Facebook who once said, "Forget work-life balance, it's just life." And I think that's something that I try and live by. JMS is, after all, part of my family. And as with any family members, there are things that keep you awake at night, whether that's a teething child or a major contract pitch. It's all part of life, it all needs to be managed. And surely it's true that if you want something done, you give it to a busy person.
When we're looking at maybe developing our strategies along diversity and inclusion, sometimes we do need to take it right down to the very basics. We need to look at the etymology of diversity and inclusion. We need to look at the words. Sometimes, because of that fear about getting it wrong, sometimes we're very apprehensive of using the actual words that we need to use to describe what we think we know.
What advice would you have given to your younger self if you knew you were going to end up doing what you do now?
So I think be brave quicker is what I would say. So I took a really bold move a couple of years ago. The job that I did for 20 odd years of my career is so different to the job I do now. But I was brave and I made a real decision to move, get a promotion, do something completely different.
I'd probably say the same thing, just go for it. When you get opportunities, just go for them, because what's the worst that can happen? You know, you might do something and find you can't do it. Well, so what, actually? You just go back and have a rethink and start again. And I think about all the things that I've had the opportunity to do. And I remember being on the plane to Australia and thinking, what am I doing? I don't know if I can do the job. And I thought, well, if I don't like it and I can't do it, I'll just get on the plane and come back.
But her coin is BFD. And that, excuse my French, but that stands for big fucking deal. I won't swear again for those who are offended. But I want you to get the point of how powerful it is. You really need to know why you're a big deal, because each and every one of you is a big deal. If you just think about yourself, position yourself correctly, and dare, be brave, dare to believe that you can be a somebody.
The police officer carrying out a firearms licensing visit bemused me a bit when I told him I was applying to join. WPCs are a real hindrance, I said. You always feel that you have to look after them. Ooh. This was in 1997. But with the naivety of youth, this didn't really deter me at all. The world's changing. Demands on policing are changing. 10 years ago, we wouldn't have been here talking about counter-terrorism, cybercrime, hidden harms, and add that backdrop of austerity, public confidence, public scrutiny. And it's a real privilege, but also a real challenge to be a police leader. My current favourite quote is, anyone can hold the helm when the sea is calm. So in here, we're all leaders of various industries, and it's all going through unprecedented change and challenge. And I've got to the stage, I think, where I no longer think it's boastful to say that makes every single person in this room a really good leader. And I'm really proud. The stories today have been really inspiring.
I wanted to share with you as I finish my motto. My favourite one is only 10 words, and each of those words is only 2 letters long. So how can something so small be so impactful? I'd like you to hold your hands up for me if you could, please, and count it down with me. If it is to be, it is up to me. Thank you. Have a brilliant day.